Richard Gaisford there, live for us from Washington, D.C. Now, I want to go to Sultan Barakat, who is a professor of public policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University. A lot of what was focused in that press conference was talking about the Strait of Hormuz. We were talking just off air about the fact that this might be now a shift. The Americans started the war with the Israelis. The Iranians cut off the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that strait has become very, very important, but the Americans seem to be shifting it off to their allies, or their so-called allies, talking about the British there as well.
To the allies and to the regional countries. I think this is what they're trying to achieve at the moment, is to declare a sort of victory, as he was saying, based on our terms. And our war that we started on the 28th of February, we've done it. Now it's your problem to open the Hormuz Strait, and it's the problem of the world who uses the oil and the countries that export the oil. But I think he's unwittingly made a number of observations, of facts in his speech. One of them, for example, he talked about today there are many more vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz, so it's no longer blocked anymore. Then he said that the missiles that Iran is building were out of range of the United States, so it's not a threat to us. So that original assumption that there was an imminent threat to the U.S., and this is why we needed to come into this war, it's nothing to do with Israel, is another false.
Yeah, we were fighting Iran 47 years. And it's very clear.
And I think also, I mean, the fact that they are so keen on marketing the supply chain means that they have a problem in the supply chain. When you start touching these issues, means you're facing difficulties. And I think it's something that is known globally and probably very well known by the Iranians, and it's part of their war of attrition with the United States, that they can continue to throw small number, but in a consistent way against Israel, and that will deplete the supplies from the United States, because it's very, very expensive. And we know that also their finances blocked back home in terms of the $200 billion that they need to resupply. So there are very interesting contradictions in the way he's presented. And I agree that the way he's ended it is really, really dangerous, with a Christian prayer coming from someone who is known for his Islamophobia. He's got it all tattooed all over his body. Yeah. And he just plays into the hands of the Iranian propaganda as such, that this is really a war against us.
The difference is Pete Hegseth actually believes that. And this is the dangerous part of it. It's not just playing into Iranian propaganda. He ended that press conference with a prayer. He is looking to, if not spark a religious war, but certainly get religion into the conversation.
I know, but that is why I think people in the region will be extremely reluctant to join any alliance that takes us in that direction, because for us it's going to be decades of sectarian war in this region that we really do not wish and we cannot afford. After we've been in trouble since the invasion of Iraq, invasion of Kuwait by Iraq, until now we haven't had a moment of breathing and enjoying the development we have earned. And I think people will be thinking extremely carefully about this, and particularly the fact that their diplomacy, the way they seem to present, is a huge cultural gap between them and the Iranians. I mean, he talks about coercive diplomacy. I will negotiate with you with a gun to your head. He doesn't understand the Iranians. They've been under pressure for 47 years. This is a civilization of thousands of years. They're not gonna blink first. And I think that cultural gap, even the way he displayed himself, he said, another fact that he given away is that he was visiting the troops and he fended an attack, which means the Iranians are on target, which is a problem if they are, because it depends on where he's been. But also,
Sultan, I'm going to stop you there because I want to bring in Tawhid Asadi, who joins us from the capital, Tehran. Now, one thing that Pete Hegseth didn't do was address the military campaign as it's going on in Iraq. And I understand you've got an update for us.
Yes, indeed. He touched upon a variety of different issues, but he didn't talk about some important aspects that I would like to raise here. First, he didn't talk about the more than 92,000 civilian units that have been targeted in Iran. And this is not my statement, but the statement that we received from the Red Crescent of the country a few days ago. And they're saying that infrastructure of the country, including power infrastructure, was targeted. He didn't talk about the environmental damage to Iran, specifically to Tehran, after the oil depots in the capital were targeted, ending up in black rain. For a population of more than 14 million people living in the Iranian capital, Tehran, and the adjacent cities. He didn't talk about more than 2,000 people, according to the health ministry of the country, who have lost their lives, and more than 70,000 homes and apartments that have been impacted. And over the past few weeks, I have been to many of these residential buildings belonging to very ordinary citizens who are now becoming another casualty of this war. He didn't talk about the fact that the United States was in the middle of a negotiation, and Iranians were expecting a next round of talks, and now Tehran feels that it has been deceived. They were waiting for another round of talk while they face this campaign of airstrikes targeting the country, and this is just dancing with the same old tune. Back in June, when these strikes happened, it was exactly the same story. Iranians were diplomatically engaged. They were trying to settle down the issue with their demands, and they were also ready to give some significant concessions to diplomatically solve the situation while they face this strikes. And now again, this is the continued nature of airstrikes, and now it is an escalated situation dragging other regional players. Iran says it's not interested in getting engaged in war with regional countries. However, due to the very fact that the regional countries are hosting the military assets, the military bases of the Americans across the region, Iran is now in another regional dilemma, in another regional intricate situation, and obviously it's going to have a heavy price for a country that has been facing years of sanctions by the United States and their Western allies, another layer of this already complicated situation.
That's Tahir Asadi there for us live in Tehran. I'm going to come back to Sultan Barakat in just a moment to talk about the Gulf and the regional allies and what all of this means. But I want to go to Axel Zaimovich, who is in Doha for us. Axel, you were at that press conference from the Qatar Foreign Ministry, very much a press conference about mediation efforts and de-escalation. Tell us what you heard.
Well, that's right, Imran. We've been hearing from Qatar's foreign ministry here, and the main message of the meeting is about diplomacy. We've been hearing that there's been a flurry of diplomatic activities. Qatar has been talking directly in a close contact with the United States of America, but also with countries across the region here. And the main focus is on de-escalation here. What we understand, there's a slight warning coming from Qataris officials here. They say that any potential escalation that's been discussed widely in the past couple of days, they say it would further destabilize the region, and they say that this is something they've been opposing since day one. But also regarding the meeting in Islamabad that we've seen officials trying to mediate the talks, Qatar says they are not directly mediating talks between the U.S. and Iran, but they say they do support any efforts to end this war as soon as possible. But also they are warning that any potential ground operation here, it's gonna put this region into a lot of stress, and it's that financial burden is also going to be felt across not just the region, but across the world. But I also asked them about the comments coming from the White House regarding the comments coming from the White House press secretary. It suggested that these talks that the region should be shared the burden, financial burden of this war. Qatar says they don't know anything about this for the time being. So this message is very consistent. Qatar wants this war to end in a diplomatic way. The more it drags on, the consequences will be felt across the world.
That's Axel Zaimovich live for us there from Doha. I want to come back to Sultan Barakat. We do have a challenge within this region. Like you say, it's possible that the Americans are trying to hand off the war to their regional allies and to their international allies when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, because they say, we've done this. But that poses a problem for the region because the warnings were very clear. If you do this, you know, the GCC said to the Americans, this is a bad idea. But if you don't finish it, then you're going to leave us with the problem.
Yes, and the answer, I think, to that is in the hands of Iran acting wisely. This is the time when Iran needs to do total recalibration of their strategy. They've hit the Gulf for a whole month now. They got their message across. According to him, they've actually been on target when he was, the Secretary of War was in the area, and so on. But they need to think beyond that. And the best way to diffuse a regional conflict is to simply take the whole Hormuz issue off the table, which he has kind of admitted to earlier today, was saying there are a lot of more vessels. But it's in the hands of Iran. Iran needs to come across as a state that represents the size of its population in the region, its volume,
But there's
etc.
no incentive for Iran to do that because there's no trust.
Well, they have to have trust because the Arab states have already offered the first step by not reacting to the attacks. You know, that should be taken seriously, and something has got to come from Iran. And Iran needs to understand the public opinion across the Arab region. People ask legitimately the question, why is it targeting the Gulf, not Azerbaijan, for example? We all know that Azerbaijan supplies 30 to 40% of Israel's oil day on day, every day. So why are you not targeting that if you work with Israel? Why are you hitting us? And the Iranians have got to be prepared to answer those questions because the same way the Gulf states are keen and recognize that there's nowhere else to go, we all have to live as neighbors, Iran has to show the same attitude. And I think this is their opportunity now. As soon as the Americans start talking about having won their first war, they should cut the way in front of them, not allow them into another war.
But very quickly, because we are running out of time, but just very quickly, if we are going to get a way out of this, then it has to be US-led. The US has to declare major combat operations over, to use that cliche that the US does.
Yes, yeah, he's kind of, they're ready. I mean, they're kind of declaring it in different ways. He's declared we have no interest. We don't really have anything left in the Gulf of strategic interest directly to us, etc.
Yeah.
So I think that is coming soon.
Sultan Barakat, thank you so much. We will pick this up in the next hour.
Thank you.